Picture this. Someone calls you out in front of a crowd, your colleague, your friend, maybe even your partner. They question your worth, your choices, your very character. Your heart races, and your instinct screams to defend yourself, to explain, to set the record straight. But what if that's the exact moment you hand them your power? Carl Jung, the genius who mapped the depths of the human psyche, uncovered a secret that can flip the script. Never defend yourself. It's not about staying silent. It's about mastering your inner strength and letting the shadow of others unravel. In the next 40 minutes, we're diving into Carl Jung's profound wisdom to reveal 5 ways to stay unshaken when attacked. Reclaim your strength and turn the tables without saying a word. Stay with us, because by the end, you'll see every accusation as a chance to rise stronger. Have you ever felt the urge to jump in and defend yourself when someone questions your character? It feels natural, almost automatic, like a reflex, to protect your pride. But Carl Jung, the visionary who peeled back the layers of the human psyche, saw this reflex as a trap. When you rush to defend yourself, you don't strengthen your position, you weaken it. In this chapter, we're diving into Carl Jung's profound insight. Defending yourself hands your power to the shadow of others. Through the lens of his psychology, we'll uncover why this instinct betrays you and how it pulls you into a losing game. By the end, you'll see every accusation as a chance to stay grounded, not a battle you need to fight. Let's start with Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. The shadow is the hidden part of every psyche, yours, mine, and the person attacking you. It's where we tuck away our darker impulses, jealousy, insecurity, fear. When someone accuses you, say, they call you selfish, arrogant, or unreliable. They're often projecting their own shadow onto you. Carl Jung believed these attacks aren't just about you. They're a glimpse into the accuser's unresolved inner conflict. But here's where we stumble. When you defend yourself, you engage with that shadow. You step into their ring, accepting their challenge as if it's your burden to disprove it. And in doing so, you give their projection power over you. Why is this a problem? Because defending yourself signals weakness. Carl Jung taught that the psyche thrives on balance, and rushing to explain yourself shows you're off balance. It's like your ego. The part of you that craves validation panics and takes the bait. When you say, "That's not true, I didn't mean it that way," you're admitting, without realizing it, that their opinion matters. You're letting their shadow define the conversation. Carl Jung would call this a loss of frame. The frame is the way the story is told. Who controls how it's perceived? By defending yourself, you're playing on their terms, letting them set the rules. And in that moment, you've already lost ground. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Sarah, a marketing manager who poured her heart into a new campaign. During a team meeting, her colleague Tom interrupted her presentation to say, "This plan feels half-baked." "Sarah, it's like you didn't think it through." The room went quiet, and Sarah's face burned. Her instinct was to defend herself. She launched into an explanation. "Actually, I spent weeks researching this, and the data backs it up." But the more she talked, the more defensive she sounded. Tom leaned back, smirking, as if he'd already won. The team didn't hear her reasoning, they saw her scrambling. Sarah didn't realize it. But by defending herself, she handed Tom the frame. He looked confident. She looked rattled. What happened here? Carl Jung would say Sarah fell into the trap of engaging with Tom's shadow. His criticism wasn't just about the campaign, it was a projection of his own insecurities. Perhaps his fear of being outshined. But by jumping to defend herself, Sarah validated his attack. She let his shadow pull her into a reactive state, where her ego fought to prove she wasn't half-baked. Carl Jung's insight is clear: when you defend yourself, you're not proving your worth, you're proving you care too much about their judgment. And that caring, that need for approval, is what weakens you. Here's the deeper truth. Defending yourself rarely changes minds. Carl Jung observed that people cling to their projections because they serve a psychological need. Tom didn't criticize Sarah to learn. He did it to feel superior. No amount of explaining would shift his view. It only gave him more ammunition to twist. When you defend yourself, you feed the shadow's narrative, giving it room to grow. The more you explain, the guiltier you appear, because only someone unsure of their truth rushes to clarify it. Carl Jung would argue that true strength lies in staying centered, not in proving you're right. Let's pause for a second. Think about a time someone attacked you. Maybe a friend called you selfish, or a coworker questioned your work. Did you jump to defend yourself? How did it feel? Did it make you stronger? Or did it leave you drained? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're a powerful way to learn from each other. So, what's the lesson here? Defending yourself is a trap that invites the shadow to control you. Carl Jung's wisdom teaches us that strength comes from refusing to play that game. When someone accuses you, they're not attacking your truth. They're revealing their own shadow. By recognizing this, you can step back and protect your inner balance. Instead of explaining, stay grounded. You don't need to justify your worth to someone who's projecting their darkness. Their accusation isn't yours to carry, it's theirs to resolve. The practical step. Next time you're tempted to defend yourself, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this attack worth my energy? Is this person projecting their shadow? By pausing, you're already practicing what Carl Jung called a conscious response, a deliberate act of staying calm instead of reacting impulsively. Sarah could have paused, looked at Tom, and said nothing, letting his words hang. That moment of stillness would have kept her in the frame, forcing Tom to question his own boldness. It's not about winning an argument. It's about preserving your strength. Before we move to the next chapter, let me ask you, have you ever defended yourself and felt weaker for it? What happened? Drop your story in the comments. It might help someone else avoid the trap. Up next, we'll explore how Carl Jung's concept of silence can become your greatest weapon when you're under fire. Stay with us. What's more powerful than words when someone attacks you? Silence. Not the kind that comes from fear, but the kind that radiates strength. Carl Jung, the master of the human psyche, knew that silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's a weapon that can shift the entire dynamic of a confrontation. When you choose not to defend yourself, you let the shadow of your accuser unravel in the quiet. In this chapter, we're diving into Carl Jung's insight on how silence becomes your greatest ally, forcing others to confront their own insecurities while you stay unshaken. By the end, you'll see why a single moment of stillness can make you untouchable. Let's unpack this through Carl Jung's lens. The shadow, that hidden part of the psyche filled with insecurities and unacknowledged flaws, thrives on reaction. When someone accuses you, say, they call you out for being too much or not enough, their shadow is projecting its own doubts onto you. Carl Jung believed that reacting to these projections, especially with a defense, feeds their power. It's like throwing fuel on a fire. But silence starves the shadow. It creates a void where their accusations echo unanswered, forcing them to face their own words. Carl Jung called this a conscious response, a deliberate choice to stay centered rather than react impulsively. By staying silent, you're not surrendering, you're reclaiming the frame. Why does silence work? Because it flips the psychological script. When you don't respond, you deny your accuser the validation they crave. Their shadow wants you to engage, to argue, to prove them right or wrong. But when you remain still, you create uncertainty. Carl Jung observed that the human psyche hates ambiguity. Your silence makes the accuser question themselves. Did I go too far? Why aren't they reacting? Are they stronger than I thought? This discomfort shifts the power dynamic. Suddenly, they're the ones scrambling, not you. You've turned their attack into a mirror, reflecting their shadow back at them. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Alex, a graphic designer at a creative agency. During a team brainstorming session, his co-worker Lisa took a jab. Alex, your ideas are always so out there. Maybe stick to something practical for once. The room tensed, waiting for Alex's response. In the past, Alex would have jumped in, explaining his creative process or defending his vision. But this time, inspired by Carl Jung's teachings, he chose silence. He leaned back, gave a slight nod, and said nothing. The silence hung heavy. Lisa fidgeted, her smirk fading as she tried to fill the void with a nervous laugh. I mean, it's just my opinion, she added, but the room had already shifted. Alex's stillness made Lisa's jab seem petty, and the team moved on. Her comment forgotten. Alex didn't just avoid a fight, he won the frame. What happened here? Carl Jung would say, Alex's silence was a conscious response that exposed Lisa's shadow. Her jab wasn't about Alex's ideas, it was her insecurity about her own creativity. By staying silent, Alex forced Lisa to sit with her own words. Her discomfort revealed her projection, and the room saw it. Carl Jung's insight is profound. Silence doesn't just protect you, it amplifies your presence. It's not about being passive, it's about being powerful. When you don't react, you create a space where others project their own doubts. And that's where your strength shines. Here's the deeper layer. Silence isn't just about not speaking, it's about how you carry yourself. Carl Jung emphasized that true strength comes from inner alignment, what he called individuation. When you're secure in your own truth, you don't need to defend it. Your silence becomes a signal of that security. Think about the most powerful people you've met. They don't rush to explain themselves. They hold space with quiet confidence, letting others fill the gaps. That's the power Carl Jung saw in staying centered. Your silence becomes a force that others can't ignore. Let's pause and reflect. Have you ever stayed silent when someone attacked you? Maybe a friend made a snide comment, or a colleague questioned your competence. What happened when you didn't respond? Did it shift the dynamic? Share your story in the comments. It could inspire someone else to try this. So, what's the lesson here? Silence is a weapon when it's intentional. Carl Jung's wisdom teaches us that by refusing to react to someone's shadow, and you take back control, their accusations lose power when they're met with stillness. Because you're not giving their projection a stage. Instead, you're letting their own doubts unravel them. To practice this, start small. Next time someone throws a subtle jab, resist the urge to defend, take a breath, hold eye contact, and let the moment pass. You'll be amazed at how quickly the dynamic shifts. That's what Carl Jung's conscious response does. It keeps you in the driver's seat. Before we move to the next chapter, let me ask you, have you ever used silence to turn the tables? How did it feel to stay calm while someone else squirmed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're all here to grow together. Up next, we'll explore how to redirect an attack without saying much. Using Carl Jung's insights to make your accuser question themselves. Stay with us. What if you could turn someone's attack against them without raising your voice? Carl Jung, the brilliant mind who decoded the human psyche, knew that when someone accuses you, their words are often a mirror of their own shadow, their hidden insecurities and fears. Instead of defending yourself and stepping into their trap, you can redirect their attack, making them question their own motives. In this chapter, we're diving into Carl Jung's wisdom on how to flip the script with subtle, powerful responses that expose the shadow without you breaking a sweat. By the end, you'll know how to make your accuser unravel while you stay in control. Let's start with Carl Jung's concept of shadow projection. When someone attacks you, calling you selfish, incompetent, or manipulative, they're often projecting their own unresolved flaws onto you. Carl Jung taught that these accusations aren't just random, they're a window into the accuser's inner turmoil. Defending yourself against these projections only strengthens their grip, pulling you into their emotional chaos. But redirection, that's where the magic happens. By responding with calm, calculated precision, you can turn their attack back on them, forcing their shadow to face itself. Carl Jung would call this a conscious response, a deliberate move to stay centered while shifting the focus to their weaknesses. How does redirection work? It's not about arguing or proving them wrong. It's about planting a seed of doubt in their mind, with a short, neutral response that flips the frame. For example, instead of saying, "I'm not selfish," you might respond, "That's an interesting perspective." This simple phrase does two things. It acknowledges their comment without agreeing, and it puts the spotlight back on them. Suddenly, they're wondering why you're so calm, why you didn't take the bait. Carl Jung noted that the shadow thrives on emotional reactions, but it falters when met with clarity and detachment. By redirecting, you're not just avoiding their trap, you're setting one of your own. Let's ground this in a story. Meet Emily, a project manager at a tech startup. During a high-stakes meeting, her colleague David took a shot at her. Emily's plan seems ambitious, but I'm not sure she's thought through the risks. The room turned to Emily, expecting her to defend her work. In the past, she might have launched into a detailed explanation, listing every risk she'd considered. But this time, inspired by Carl Jung's teachings, she chose redirection. She paused, smiled lightly, and said, "David, I'd love to hear your take on managing those risks." The room shifted. David stumbled, unprepared to offer a solution. His criticism, meant to undermine Emily, now made him look unprepared. Emily didn't defend herself. She redirected the attack, exposing David's shadow without a fight. What's happening here, Carl Jung would say? Emily used a conscious response to disrupt David's shadow projection. His comment wasn't about Emily's plan. It was about his own need to feel superior, perhaps masking his fear of being outdone by redirecting with a calm, open-ended question. Emily forced David to confront his own lack of substance. Carl Jung's insight is powerful. Redirection doesn't just protect your inner strength, it reveals the fragility of your accuser's psyche. Their shadow, expecting a defensive reaction, is caught off guard when you turn the mirror back on them. Here's the deeper layer. Redirection is about controlling the emotional tempo. Carl Jung emphasized that the psyche is a battlefield of energy. When someone attacks you, they're trying to pull you into their emotional rhythm, anger, insecurity, or chaos. By responding with a brief, neutral, comment, you refuse to dance to their tune. Instead, you set the pace. Phrases like "interesting take" or "what makes you say" that aren't just words, they're psychological judo. They use the attacker's energy against them, making them question their own stance. Carl Jung would argue that this kind of response aligns with individuation, the process of staying true to your inner self while navigating external conflicts. Let's pause and reflect. Have you ever turned an accusation back on someone with a calm response? Maybe a friend criticized your choices, or a co-worker questioned your skills. What happened when you didn't take the bait? Share your story in the comments. It could spark inspiration for someone else. So, what's the lesson here? Redirecting an attack is about staying in control without engaging in a fight. Carl Jung's wisdom shows us that the shadow wants to drag you into its chaos, but a conscious response keeps you above it. Instead of defending yourself, use short, neutral phrases to shift the focus back to your accuser. Try phrases like, "That's one way to see it," or "Tell me more about that." These responses don't just protect your inner strength, they expose the shadow's weaknesses. To practice, next time someone takes a jab, resist the urge to explain. Pause, smile, and redirect with a question or comment that puts them on the spot. You'll be amazed at how quickly their confidence crumbles. Before we move to the next chapter, let me ask you, have you ever flipped the script on someone's attack? How did it feel to watch them squirm? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're all here to learn from each other. Up next, we'll dive into how Carl Jung's concept of inner strength can make you untouchable, no matter who comes for you. Stay with us. What makes someone truly untouchable? It's not about fighting back or outsmarting your accuser. It's about building a core of inner strength that no attack can shake. Carl Jung, the visionary who mapped the human psyche, believed that true power comes from within. Through a process he called individuation, when you're secure in who you are, the shadow of others, their accusations, their projections, loses its grip. In this chapter, we're diving into Carl Jung's wisdom on how to cultivate an unshakable inner strength that makes you immune to attacks without ever needing to defend yourself. By the end, you'll know how to anchor yourself in your truth and rise above any storm. Let's start with Carl Jung's concept of individuation. This is the journey of becoming your true self, integrating all parts of your psyche, your strengths, your flaws, even your shadow into a balanced whole. Carl Jung taught that when you're on this path, you develop a deep sense of self that doesn't rely on external validation. Attacks, criticisms, or accusations from others, they bounce off because your worth isn't tied to their opinions. When you stop defending yourself, you're not just avoiding a fight, you're declaring that your truth doesn't need their approval. This is what makes you untouchable, an inner strength that stands firm, no matter who comes for you. Why does this matter? Because the shadow of others thrives on your insecurity. Carl Jung observed that when someone attacks you, calling you out, questioning your character, or undermining your work, they're often targeting your doubts. Their shadow senses where you're vulnerable, like a predator sniffing out weakness. If you defend yourself, you signal that those doubts have weight. But when you're grounded in your inner strength, their accusations lose power. Carl Jung called this staying in alignment with your psyche. You're not reacting to their shadow. You're rooted in your own truth, letting their words fall flat. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Marcus, a freelance writer who loved crafting stories that inspired others. His core value, his sense of purpose, was tied to his creativity. But at a networking event, a rival writer, Jenna, took a public jab. "Marcus, your work is so idealistic. It's cute, but it's not exactly groundbreaking." The crowd turned, waiting for Marcus to fire back. In the past, he might have explained his creative process or cited his portfolio to prove her wrong, but Marcus had been studying Carl Jung's teachings. Instead of defending himself, he stayed calm, smiled, and said nothing. Later, he focused on his writing, pouring his energy into a new project that gained traction online. When Jenna saw his success, she tried again, emailing him, I didn't mean to offend you at the event. Can we talk? Marcus recognized her shadow at work. Her jab wasn't about his writing. It was her fear of being outshined. He politely declined her outreach and kept building his craft. Marcus didn't need to defend himself. His inner strength spoke louder than her words. What happened here, Carl Jung would say, Marcus was practicing individuation. By staying true to his creative purpose, he refused to let Jenna's shadow define him. His silence at the event wasn't weakness. It was a conscious choice to protect his inner alignment. When he ignored her later attempt to reconnect, he wasn't being cold. He was prioritizing his growth. Carl Jung's insight is profound. Inner strength doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from living your truth so fully that external attacks become irrelevant. Marcus's success wasn't just a career win, it was a psychological victory, proving that no one could shake his core. Here's the deeper layer. Building inner strength is about knowing your core complexes, the values and passions that define you. Carl Jung taught that these are the pillars of your psyche, like Marcus's love for storytelling. When you're clear on what matters most to you, accusations feel less personal. If someone calls you too idealistic, but you know your idealism fuels your purpose, their words lose their sting. Carl Jung's process of individuation helps you identify these pillars and protect them. You do this by reflecting on what drives you, what makes you feel alive, and then living in alignment with those truths. When you're anchored in your core, the shadow of others can't pull you off course. But how do you build this strength? Carl Jung emphasized self-awareness as the foundation. Start by asking, what are my core values? What makes me? Me. Maybe it's your creativity, your loyalty, or your drive to help others. Write them down and remind yourself of them daily. When an attack comes, you'll see it for what it is, a projection of someone else's shadow, not a reflection of your worth. Carl Jung also believed in confronting your own shadow, your fears, doubts, and insecurities. By acknowledging them, you rob external attacks of their power. If Marcus had doubted his writing, Jenna's jab might have crushed him. But because he knew his strengths and flaws, he could let her words slide. Let's pause and reflect. What's a core value that defines you? Maybe it's your work ethic, your kindness, or your passion for something unique. Have you ever felt it attacked? How did you hold on to it? Share your story in the comments. It could inspire someone else to stand firm. So, what's the lesson here? Building inner strength means anchoring yourself in your truth. So, no attack can shake you. Carl Jung's individuation teaches us that when you know who you are, you don't need to defend yourself against the shadow of others. Their accusations are just noise. Your core is what matters. To start building this strength, take time to identify your core complexes. Write down 1 or 2 values that drive you, and commit to living them every day. When criticism comes, pause and ask, does this align with my truth? If not, let it go. Practice small acts of alignment, like Marcus focusing on his writing instead of engaging with Jenna. Each act builds a fortress around your psyche. Before we move to the next chapter, let me ask you, what's one moment you stood firm in your truth despite an attack? How did it feel to stay anchored? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're all here to grow together. Up next, we'll explore how Carl Jung's wisdom on healing can turn every attack into a chance to rise stronger. Stay with us. What's the ultimate victory? When someone tries to tear you down, it's not proving them wrong, it's healing stronger than ever. Carl Jung, the genius who unraveled the depths of the human psyche, believed that by refusing to defend yourself against attacks, you protect your soul and pave the way for profound growth. When you let accusations slide, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're reclaiming your power to heal. In this final chapter, we're diving into Carl Jung's wisdom on how non-defense becomes a path to emotional and psychological recovery, turning every attack into a stepping stone for your transformation. By the end, you'll see that healing is your greatest act of defiance against the shadow. Let's start with Carl Jung's perspective on healing. For Carl Jung, healing wasn't just about mending wounds, it was about individuation. The process of becoming your true, integrated self. When someone attacks you, their shadow, their hidden fears and insecurities, tries to drag you into a cycle of pain and reaction. Defending yourself keeps you trapped in that cycle, feeding their shadow while draining your spirit. But choosing non-defense, that's a radical act of self-preservation. By refusing to engage with their projection, you protect your psyche and create space for growth. Carl Jung called this a conscious response, a deliberate choice to prioritize your inner peace over external validation. Why does non-defense lead to healing? Because it frees you from the emotional weight of others' shadows. Carl Jung taught that when you defend yourself, you internalize the attack, letting it chip away at your confidence. Every explanation, every justification, ties you to the accuser's narrative, making their words feel like truth. But when you stay silent or redirect, you let their shadow bear its own burden. This detachment allows you to focus on what truly matters, rebuilding your sense of self. Carl Jung believed that true healing happens when you turn inward, confronting your own doubts and fears, and emerging stronger. Non-defense is the key that unlocks this process, turning pain into power. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Rachel, a small business owner who ran a cozy bakery. Her core complex, her deepest value was her dream of creating a community space through her work. But her former friend and business partner, Claire, betrayed her trust by spreading rumors that Rachel was cutting corners with her ingredients. Customers started pulling away, and Rachel felt her dream slipping. At first, she wanted to confront Claire, to defend her reputation and prove the rumors false. But after discovering Carl Jung's teachings, Rachel chose a different path. She stayed silent, refusing to engage with Claire's attacks. Instead, she poured her energy into her bakery, sourcing the best ingredients, hosting community events, and sharing her story online. Slowly, customers returned, drawn to her authenticity. When Claire later reached out, claiming she didn't mean to hurt Rachel, Rachel saw through the shadow. She politely declined to reconnect and kept building her business. Rachel's silence wasn't weakness, it was healing. By not defending herself, she transformed betrayal into triumph. What happened here, Carl Jung would say, Rachel's non-defense was a conscious response that protected her psyche. Claire's rumors weren't about Rachel's bakery. They were a projection of Claire's own jealousy and insecurity. By refusing to engage, Rachel avoided the emotional spiral of defense and focused on her growth. Carl Jung's insight is profound. Healing through non-defense isn't about ignoring pain. It's about redirecting your energy to what aligns with your truth. Rachel's success wasn't just a business comeback, it was a psychological victory, proving that no shadow could dim her light. Here's the deeper layer. Healing through non-defense requires confronting your own shadow. Carl Jung believed that attacks hurt most when they touch our hidden doubts. For Rachel, Claire's rumors stung because she secretly feared her business wasn't good enough. By choosing non-defense, Rachel faced that fear head-on, proving to herself that her dream was worth fighting for. Carl Jung's process of individuation encourages this self-reflection. When you stop defending against external attacks, you start healing internal wounds. You ask, what doubts am I carrying? What fears make these accusations sting? By answering these questions, you integrate your shadow, turning vulnerabilities into strengths. How do you practice this healing? Carl Jung emphasized self-awareness and intentional action. Start by identifying the attacks that hurt most. Those are clues to your shadow. Maybe criticism about your work hits hard because you doubt your skills, or a jab about your character stings because you fear you're not enough. Write these fears down and face them honestly. Next, commit to non-defense in small ways. When someone criticizes you, pause and choose silence or redirection instead of explaining. Use that energy to nurture your core values, whether it's creating, connecting, or growing. Finally, seek support. Carl Jung believed healing happens in community. Share your journey with trusted friends or a therapist who can affirm your truth. Each step you take builds resilience, turning attacks into opportunities for transformation. Let's pause and reflect. Have you ever healed from an attack by letting it go? Maybe someone criticized you, and instead of defending yourself, you focused on your growth. What did that feel like? Share your story in the comments. It could light the way for someone else. So, what's the lesson here? Healing through non-defense is your ultimate act of defiance. Carl Jung's wisdom teaches us that by refusing to engage with the shadow of others, you protect your psyche and open the door to growth. Their accusations don't define you. Your response does. To start this healing, face your own shadow by naming your doubts and fears. Practice non-defense by choosing silence or redirection when attacked. And redirect that energy to your core values. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, and let every attack become a chance to rise stronger. Rachel's story shows us that healing isn't just recovery, it's rebellion against those who try to break you. Before we wrap up in the next section, I want to hear from you. What's one moment you chose to heal instead of defend? How did it transform you? Drop your story in the comments. Your words could inspire someone else. Up next, we'll bring it all together with a powerful Carl Jung-inspired mindset to stay untouchable in any storm. Stay with us. You've just journeyed through Carl Jung's wisdom, uncovering 5 ways to rise above attacks without defending yourself. From the trap of self-defense to the power of silence, redirection, inner strength, and healing. You've learned how to reclaim your power when the shadow of others tries to dim your light. Carl Jung showed us that accusations aren't about your worth. They're projections of someone else's darkness. In these 40 minutes, we've revealed how to stay unshaken and turn every attack into a chance to grow stronger. Let's close with a story that proves you can triumph. Meet Mia, a painter whose art was her soul. At an exhibition, a critic sneered. Mia's work is cute, but not serious. The crowd waited for her to argue. Instead, inspired by Carl Jung, Mia smiled and said nothing, focusing on her next masterpiece. Months later, her paintings sold out, and the critic's words faded. Mia's silence and focus were her victory. She healed by staying true to her core. Here's your challenge. Don't let the shadow of others define you. Carl Jung's wisdom empowers you to see attacks as their darkness, not your truth. Take one step today. Stay silent, redirect, or focus on your growth. You are what you choose to become. Share a time you rose above an attack in the comments. Your story could inspire others. If this video gave you tools to stay strong, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Jung Psyche Hub. Ring the bell for more Carl Jung-inspired insights. As Carl Jung said, your heart holds your truth. Rise, reclaim your strength, and let's keep growing together.